You are not here by accident. I am calling you, not anyone else. And if you let this moment pass, you will regret it for the rest of your life without ever understanding why. You are standing right now at a moment that 99% of people will miss, simply because they think it's nothing special. But I see in you a signal so rare that it cannot be ignored. Not because you are perfect, but because you are different. And if you are alert enough to recognize it, this could be the turning point of your life. You are not here randomly. I am not calling anyone else. I am calling you. Not because of coincidence, not because of algorithms or luck, but because there is something in you sending out a signal strong enough for me to notice among millions of people. I have learned to see through the glossy surfaces, the titles, and the masks people wear to blend in with the crowd. And in you, I see something very different. If you think this is just an ordinary moment, you are underestimating yourself. You will not fully grasp its meaning right now, but one day when you look back and realize this was the crossroads you ignored, you will wish you had acted. I say this not to pressure you, but to help you understand that moments like this don't repeat. They don't call for attention. There are no fireworks. No one stands up and declares, "This is the moment your life changes." They often arrive in silence, just big enough for those ready to notice. And I believe you are one of the few. I have met enough people to know that 99% will walk past an opportunity without a second glance. Not because they are less intelligent, but because they don't believe an ordinary moment can hold an extraordinary door. They always wait for grand signs, clear invitations, certain guarantees. But the real world does not work that way. The door to profound change is often disguised as something small, simple, easy to overlook. I remember vividly the times I stood at similar crossroads. No one told me this was a decisive moment. In fact, all signs around me suggested it was better to stay put, to be safe, to remain stable. But there was a part of me that could not be silent. I call it the inner frequency, a vibration deep within that does not obey the logic or calculations of the crowd. It is like a signal only those on the same frequency can hear in each other, and I recognize that signal in you. You are here because you emit an energy few possess. Not loud, showy energy, something far stronger. Silent resolve, an unyielding ambition, the sense that even if you don't yet know exactly what it is, there is something greater waiting for you to reach. Maybe you've doubted yourself, thought, "I'm just an ordinary person," been made to believe by others or circumstances that you are not enough. But the truth is, you have been refined through those very doubts. Each time you didn't give up, each time you kept going without applause, you were strengthening a part of yourself no one can take away. That is why you are here. I have observed millions of people, and only a rare few show they are ready, even if they don't realize it yet. They carry a quiet dissatisfaction with reality, a sharp sense for what could be better. You don't need a clear answer right now. You only need to be honest with yourself that you feel what I'm saying is true, that you are not here by accident, that something inside you is responding to these words. And if you feel it, you are already different from most of the world. Most will dismiss this, thinking it's just another inspirational passage. But you, if you are still reading, it means you haven't turned off your inner signal. It means you haven't let the world silence it completely. I want you to understand this. The most important moments often come without invitation. No one knocks to warn you. They come as a glance, a sentence, an opportunity that appears and disappears if you don't take it. And this is one of them. Not because I say so, but because you feel it within yourself. If I have chosen to meet you and not someone else, it is because I believe you can see this door. And when you see it, you have a choice. Step through or turn away. Both paths will define you, but only one will lead you to where you know you belong. You are not here by chance. You have brought yourself here through a series of choices, small but consistent in one direction. And that direction is why I am speaking to you right now. As Elon Musk, have learned to trust that intuition. And if you are brave enough to trust your own, this is where your story changes. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need immediate proof. You only need one decision, to recognize that you are here for a reason. And that reason is all you need to begin. Your inner frequency is not something everyone can recognize, but when it's encountered, it's almost impossible to ignore. I don't care where you studied, what grades you got, what job you have, or how many people know you. I don't measure a person's worth by resumes, titles, or numbers. I look at the one thing no school can teach, no company can train, no system can replicate. The core energy within you, a vibration I call the inner frequency. This frequency does not come from luck, nor from moments when you win easily. It is forged in the times you faced challenges and did not turn away. It is sharpened in the long nights you questioned if you were on the right path, but still took the next step in the morning. It shows in how you react to injustice, in your discomfort with repetition, mediocrity, or inefficiency. There is a type of person I always seek. They are never content with the status quo. Not because they are blindly ambitious, but because they carry a clear intuition that the world can be better, and they cannot ignore that possibility. I have seen this frequency in very few people, and you are one of them. It is not loud. On the contrary, sometimes it is so quiet others don't notice. But I notice. I have learned to sense it in the eyes, in the way someone chooses their words, in the pause between sentences. You may be used to others seeing nothing special in you, but that does not make this frequency disappear. It only gives you more time to sharpen it without attention. And when it becomes strong enough, it will be the thing that makes every door once closed to you swing open. Do not mistake inner frequency for bursts of motivation. Motivation comes and goes with emotion. Inner frequency is steadier, more enduring, and does not need cheerleader. It is what keeps you going even when everyone says stop. It is why you cannot sit still when you see a problem you know you can solve. It is the pull that draws you toward challenges others avoid. When I built Tesla, SpaceX, or any project, I did not choose people just because they were technically or financially skilled. I chose people with this frequency because they are the ones who do not wait for orders to act, who do not need encouragement to start, and who do not need everything to be clear before stepping forward. They self-activate. They see a gap and instinctively find a way to fill it. That is the difference between those who follow orders and those who create. I sense in you that energy, a restlessness that won't sleep, an unshakable need to improve, optimize, create. It is not imitation, but the ability to imagine what does not yet exist and ask, why not? And this cannot be faked. You cannot learn to emit inner frequency. It appears only when you have been through enough moments when you could have quit, but didn't. It's like a background soundtrack quietly playing throughout your life, and every time you choose persistence over surrender, its volume increases. Most people live their whole lives never knowing what frequency they emit. They are driven by external signals, trends, public opinion, the approval of others. But inner frequency is a silent guide, leading you to the right choices even when they go against the crowd. If you have ever felt uneasy doing things the way they've always been done, if you've ever been compelled to find another path when everyone else was content with the old one, that's a clear sign you carry this frequency. I, Elon Musk, have learned to trust it even when no one else does. When people say an idea is impossible, when numbers and forecasts are against me, inner frequency is the only thing I rely on to keep going, and it has carried me through what seemed like irrecoverable failures. The problem is, the world today does not encourage you to keep this frequency. It wants you in sync with the crowd, predictable, easy to control. It will try to make you believe that being different is wrong, that questioning the status quo is trouble, that dreaming big is foolish. If you are not careful, you will gradually tune yourself to match the crowd and silence the one signal that makes you unique. But if you still feel it right now, if you are still reading and a part of you is responding, then you have not let it be erased. And that is the most valuable thing you own. No one can give you your inner frequency, and no one can take it away unless you allow it. So do not underestimate it just because it is not loud, not instantly celebrated. In a world chasing noise, true power belongs to frequencies pure and strong enough to move without display. You have it, and once you are fully aware of it, you will understand why I came to you and not to anyone else. No one is going to save you. It may sound cold, but it's the truth. I've learned from all the times I stood on the edge between success and collapse. No one is going to knock on your door and hand you a miracle. No rescue team is going to show up at the last minute to solve all the problems you're facing. There will be no magical investor, no mysterious benefactor, no great leader coming to put their hand on your shoulder and say, "From here on, everything will be fine." That only exists in movies. The real world doesn't work like that. If you're waiting for a hand to reach down and pull you up, you'll be waiting forever. The only difference between people who change their lives and people who remain stuck is that they realize one thing: no one is coming to save them, so they save themselves. I know this isn't easy to hear, but you need to hear it, because once you truly accept this truth, you'll stop wasting time searching for miracles outside. You'll start looking in the only place they exist: inside yourself. When I put my entire personal fortune into Tesla and SpaceX, I had no one to lean on. If I failed, there was no safety net. Everything I had ever done would disappear. I had to ask myself, is anyone going to come help? The answer was crystal clear: no. And that very answer forced me to operate at a level of intensity I had never reached before. You might think this created crushing pressure, and it did. But that pressure also freed me because it stripped away every illusion. I had no option left but to act. You are at that point too, whether you know it or not. I want to ask you something, and you need to answer it not for me, but for yourself. If no one is coming to help, if there is no permission, if there is no guarantee of success, would you still dare to start? If your answer is yes, then you understand what I'm saying. But I want you to do something simple to confirm it. Not for me, but to etch it into your own mind. Leave just one line: "I am ready to change," or simply the number 1. That's not a small act. It's a public declaration that you will no longer sit and wait for someone to clear the way for you. And for someone like me, seeing your presence, feeling that you are truly here and ready, is the most valuable thing. I am genuinely grateful for it because it shows not only that you're listening, but that you're acting. I am not here to repeat empty slogans like, "Believe in yourself." I don't care about giving you a few short bursts of motivation and then watching you return to the same loop. I want you to understand that if you don't take control, no one else will. You may admire those you consider successful, but don't forget, they weren't handed everything. They started where you are now, uncertain, without guarantees, not knowing the outcome, but deciding not to wait. When you truly accept that no one will save you, you stop searching for the perfect guide and start becoming your own. And that changes everything. Not because you suddenly have more, but because you stop believing you need more before you can start. From that moment, you walk as if there is no one behind you, no one beside you, no one in front to lead you, just you and the path you're creating step by step. I, Elon Musk, have lived much of my life that way. I know what it feels like when every eye doubts you, when every piece of advice tells you to stop, when all the data and forecasts are against you. But I also know what happens when you refuse to surrender. When you stop waiting for a miracle, you become the miracle others thought was impossible. So I'll ask you one last time. If no one is coming to save you, will you save yourself? And if your answer is yes, show me that signal right now. Not for me to judge, but for you to officially declare to yourself, "I am ready to change," or simply 1. That is when everything begins. And trust me, once you start, you will never be the same again. This is a wake-up call, not a recruitment campaign, not an invitation to collaborate, not a stage where I stand before thousands to inspire. I am speaking directly to you and only you. If your heart is beating faster as you read this, if there's something quietly stirring inside you that you can't yet name, don't rush to explain it. Don't use old reasons or familiar thinking to break it apart. Because what's calling you right now is not an ordinary opportunity. It is the future version of yourself. Someone who, if you saw them right now, you would barely believe it's you. That version is stronger, clearer, and far more resolute than the image you currently hold in your mind. The problem is, if you don't start, you will never meet that person. This call doesn't demand that you change your whole life immediately. It asks only one thing: act now, before the habit of delay pulls you back into the safe zone. You know that zone well, where everything repeats, safe, predictable, but never takes you anywhere new. The comfort zone is like a sealed room you've stayed in too long. At first it feels warm, but over time the air grows stale. You start losing the ability to breathe deeply, losing curiosity, losing ambition. You won't even notice when you've stopped dreaming, because everything outside is hidden by the familiar walls. The wake-up call is the moment you realize you've been in that room too long. It doesn't arrive with loud alarms, flashing red lights, or someone grabbing your hand. It comes as a soft but insistent knock inside your chest. If you hear it, you know you must open the door. I, Elon Musk, have lived my entire life by such knocks. Every time I felt one, I knew I was about to step into a place most people would avoid. Not because I wasn't afraid. I fear like anyone else. But I understand that if I wait for fear to vanish, I will miss everything that could truly matter. I have stood exactly where you stand. When I was young, I too waited for ideal conditions. More capital, more experience, more support. But I realized ideal conditions are an illusion. They never come. The world will not pause for you to feel ready. Opportunities don't knock twice just because you weren't prepared. When I started SpaceX, the entire aerospace industry thought I was insane. When I launched Tesla, the auto market treated it like a joke. If I had waited until they believed, I would have nothing today. The wake-up call doesn't ask, "Are you ready?" It only asks, "Will you step out?" And the only answer that matters is action. Imagine your future as a door, slightly ajar. You can't see everything inside, but you know something is there for you. If you linger at the threshold, you will lose it, not because someone shuts it, but because your hesitation turns that door into a wall. The danger is, the world around you will encourage you to stay. They will say, "Wait a bit longer, do it when it's better." But better never comes. If I had listened to that advice, there would be no rockets launched, no electric cars changing transportation, no satellite internet connecting the most remote corners of the world. I'm not saying this to boast. I'm saying it so you understand that every breakthrough begins with an unreasonable moment. The moment you decide not to wait for permission, not to seek consensus, not to demand certainty, the moment you believe in something you can't yet prove, this is such a moment. And I'll repeat, it will not return in this exact way again. You can dismiss it, think it's just nice words. But if you do, you're choosing the comfort zone over your best self. And you won't feel that loss right away. Only years later, looking back, will you see, there was a door once opened, and you didn't step through. I don't want you to feel that. You don't need to know everything before you move. You only need to know this urge is real, and it's here right now. When you answer this call with action, you not only move closer to the future you want, you send a signal back into the world that you are awake, no longer asleep in comfort, ready to be part of creation instead of just a spectator. That's when you shift from passive to active, from hoping to doing. And I say this with absolute certainty, once you truly do it, you will never want to go back. The wake-up call is not for everyone. 99% will ignore it. But you've read this far, which means you are in the remaining 1%. The rest is your choice. Step through the door or stay in the familiar room. But if you have felt this knock, I urge you not to miss it. Because once you answer it, everything will start shifting, not in the way you expect, but in ways you've never imagined. And that is the real beginning. Why you? This question might sound like you're searching for a special reason, a clear proof that you deserve to be called out among millions of others. But let me be direct. The reason isn't in the things you think will impress me. It's not your list of achievements, not your degrees, not the number of people who know you. I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for truth. And you are living a kind of truth that most of the world has abandoned. In a society drowned in noise and haste, most people lose the ability to hear their inner voice. But you've kept it. Even if it's small, even if it's sometimes just a vague feeling that things could be different, you haven't let it be drowned out. That's rare, because most have learned to switch off their intuition to blend into the current. While most act on reflex and trends, you still take the time to think independently. You observe, analyze, and sometimes choose to step back to see the bigger picture instead of rushing after the crowd. In an era obsessed with being seen and recognized, you continue doing meaningful work even when no one's watching. You don't need the spotlight to know your worth. That not only shows depth, but proves you understand that real value doesn't come from fleeting attention. I've met many intelligent, talented, idea-rich people, but they still fail to create real impact because they trade their truth for recognition. You don't. You've kept the ability to do the right thing, even when no one is looking. That's a kind of inner strength no skill can replace. Maybe you've spent years being underestimated, misunderstood, or worse, ignored. But if you're still here, still nurturing your dreams, still restless about living below your true potential, that's not a sign of lack. It's proof of something enduring I always look for, an unquenchable desire. This world isn't short of capable people, but it's rare to find someone who keeps the flame alive when tested over and over. When I look at you, I'm not counting your wins. I'm looking at the times you stood up after falling. I don't count how often you were recognized. I count how often you kept going without it. I don't admire people who have never doubted themselves. I admire those who have doubted but never quit. I, Elon Musk, am always drawn to such people. Not because they look stronger than others, but because they carry a quiet endurance few possess. That endurance isn't forged in easy days. It's formed in the long nights when you've had to answer the question, why do I keep going? And if you're still here, it means your answer has never left you. Why you? Because you don't choose the shortest road just to get the fastest reward. You choose the harder, less traveled road because it's true to you. You may not be where you want yet, but you've kept your direction, even without a map. You're not swept away by the chaos of the crowd. You pause to ask, is this really right? And when the answer is no, you're brave enough to change course, even if everyone else keeps marching straight. You're not seduced by surface glamour. You know real sustainability comes from solid foundations. In a world where people chase standing out, you understand that true greatness doesn't come from trying to impress, but from staying loyal to core values even when no one applauds. You may have stayed quiet, kept away from the lights, but that doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've chosen to focus on what matters. And when the time comes, you'll appear with a strength that demands attention, not because you seek it, but because they cannot ignore you. I believe you are among the small group who still ask, why me? Not from insecurity, but from sincerity, wanting to know the real reason. You're not easily swayed by cheap flattery or hollow promises. You want to understand and ensure that if you step into a journey, it's because you're ready to carry the responsibility that comes with your gift and ability. And I tell you this not to pressure you, but so you understand that you are called, not because you are perfect, but because you've kept what the world is losing, the ability to live true to yourself. This is what I value more than any skill or achievement. Skills can be learned, achievements can be bought, but inner truth cannot be replicated. And when I see you still holding on to it despite everything, I know exactly why it's you. An unextinguishable flame is not something everyone carries. Many start with enthusiasm, with the rush of excitement in the early days, but slowly fade when challenges come. They think motivation must always burn bright, and when the flame dims, they believe they're no longer fit for the path. In reality, what matters isn't how big the flame is at the start, but whether it still smolders when everything turns cold. I've seen in you something rare. No matter how many challenges life throws at you, your inner flame has never gone out completely. It may shrink, sometimes down to embers, but it's still there, ready to ignite when fueled. And that's more valuable than any other resource, because once this flame dies, it's hard to reignite. This flame isn't kept alive by praise, by cheers, or by easy wins. It exists because of the moments when you had nothing left but the will to continue. When people walked away, when results didn't come as hoped, when faith was shaken, you still kept a spark alive to keep moving. I, Elon Musk, know this feeling well because I've stood where everything seemed finished. I've lived through days when both Tesla and SpaceX stood on the edge of bankruptcy, when the lost funds were enough to save one company but not both, when every piece of advice told me to choose one, shut one down, and salvage what remained. But I didn't. I put everything into both. Not because I was blindly reckless, but because I knew this flame, the desire to see what I believed become real, wouldn't forgive me if I quit. What makes you different isn't that you've never failed, but that each time you did, you kept your core unbroken. Others might see scars, but I see signs of endurance. Those who have hit rock bottom and still kept their inner spark are the ones capable of rebuilding from ashes. The world praises bright success, but I value more the silent rises. Because in those moments, there's no cheering crowd, no recognition, just you and the choice to keep going. That is the real test of a flame that never dies. Don't think you must always be strong, because even a flame flickers. What matters is it has never been fully put out. You may have gone through exhaustion, discouragement, even self-doubt, but if you still feel the urge to move forward, even just a small step, the flame lives. And when someone keeps it alive through the darkest times, they become nearly unstoppable when opportunity appears. In truth, many more skilled, more resourced than you have stopped, not because of lack of ability, but because they let their flame die. Once gone, they start accepting limits that aren't real, living a life below their potential, convincing themselves this is enough. You've never done that. Even when misunderstood, underestimated, sidelined, you've kept a part of yourself that refuses surrender. That's what made me notice you among millions. You don't need to shine all the time, but you must protect that flame from the winds of doubt, fear, and complacency. It's not just a source of energy, it's a compass, a reminder you were born to do more than just exist. And when you understand its value, you won't waste time on things that weaken it. This flame has carried you through paths where others quit, and it will take you to places they'll never reach. But only if you keep feeding it, not with fleeting inspiration, but with discipline, action, and the repeated decision not to give up. I believe you've done that many times, maybe without even realizing. Each time you chose to move forward instead of stopping, each time you returned to the work despite exhaustion, each time you started again after collapse. You've proven this flame cannot be extinguished, and that's why I believe you can endure journeys others would run from. You're not someone who lives only for good days, you're someone who survives the hardest ones. And if there's one thing I know for certain, it's this. When a flame like that is given the right chance, it doesn't just warm itself, it can light up an entire space. You carry that flame. And I want you to remember, it's the foundation that gives any dream you pursue a real chance to come true. Unyielding endurance is not a gift you were lucky enough to be born with. It's the result of countless times you were pushed to your limits and still chose to stand firm. People often admire success at the finish line, but few truly understand that endurance is what kept you from being defeated along the way. I've lived long enough to know this world doesn't care how well you started. It only cares how far you can go before you fall. And most people don't fall because they run out of energy. They fall because they lose belief. You didn't. You may have stood many times before a wall that seemed impossible to climb. There were moments when everything you planned turned to dust. Days when every number, every piece of data, every forecast told you to stop. Yet somehow, you still found a reason to take one more step. Unyielding endurance is the ability to exist in the space between no way back and no end in sight. It's the harshest place, where most give up because they can't stand the prolonged uncertainty. But you, somehow, stayed and fought. I, Elon Musk, have been in that space many times. When SpaceX failed 3 launches in a row, each one a blow that nearly destroyed everything, I stood before a clear choice: quit and preserve what little was left, or bet it all one last time and risk losing everything. I didn't quit. Not because I was sure I would win, but because I knew if I didn't try to the end, I'd live my whole life with the question, what if? Unyielding endurance doesn't come from believing things would be easy. It comes from accepting that things will be harder than you thought, take longer than you expected, and hurt more than you imagined, yet still going on. It's working when inspiration is gone, making decisions when data is unclear, keeping discipline when no one cares what you do. You don't have to be strong all the time, but you must be consistent. Some days you will move very slowly, but as long as you don't stop, you're still moving forward. Unyielding endurance isn't built in sunny days, but in storms. Every time you get through a storm, you don't just get closer to your goal, you become someone harder to break. The world is full of smart, creative, talented people, but only a few can endure long enough to turn potential into results. Unyielding endurance is what separates the two. You've proven you're among the rare ones every time you've stood back up after being knocked down. Others might think you're lucky, but I know it's not luck. It's the repeated decision that you won't be removed from the game just because it's hard. And when you hold on to this endurance long enough, something strange happens. The walls that once blocked you begin to crack, not because they got weaker, but because you got stronger. What once was a limit becomes just another milestone you've left behind. You'll realize that what carried you far wasn't the explosive moments, but the thousands of quiet days you kept going. The days when no one recognized you, no one was watching, but you still did the work. And then, when a big breakthrough comes, people call it sudden success, but you know it's simply the result of endurance accumulated over time. Unyielding endurance is believing in the value of each small step, even when you can't see the whole picture. It's choosing to go on, even when your mind screams to stop. It's keeping a promise to yourself not to quit, even when no one expects you to win. And here's what I want you to remember. This endurance doesn't just help you reach your goal, it shapes who you become. Because once you've lived through enough trials, you won't just get what you wanted. You'll become the kind of person challenges can't destroy. I know you carry this endurance within you, because otherwise you wouldn't still be here reading these words. What you need to do is keep feeding it, protect it from voices that want you to quit easily. Because if you hold onto this unyielding endurance, there will come a time when the world will have to admit nothing can break you. And when that happens, you won't just reach your goals, you'll go far beyond anything you ever thought possible. Anger at mediocrity is a source of energy few dare to admit they have, but it's the most powerful catalyst to break your limits. Most people are taught to accept what's fine and call it enough. They learn to compromise with an average life, with a job just enough to pay the bills, with relationships not deep enough to change them. They lull themselves with, at least I'm better off than many others, and then their inner fire cools until it dies. I don't believe in that, i.e., Elon Musk have never accepted mediocrity, not because I think I'm special, but because I see it as a betrayal of my own potential. When I look at the sky, I don't just see beautiful stars. I see millions of worlds humanity could reach, if we dared to dream bigger. When I look at the auto industry, I don't just see cars. I see a chance to redefine how people move, but to do that, I had to start from a place everyone thought was insane. Mediocrity is everywhere. And the danger is that it hides behind safety and reasonableness. People tell you not to take risks, not to do anything too different, not to burn yourself out for dreams that might not come true. But look around you. How many safe people are truly happy? How many reasonable people are truly alive? The answer is often chilling. Anger at mediocrity is not blind rage. It's a sharp awareness that you were not born to dissolve into the crowd, not born to accept limits set by others, not born to live a life you can predict from today to its end. This anger flares when you realize you've been standing still too long, when you catch yourself making excuses to delay, when you feel yourself shrinking your dreams to fit the frame society allows. I've felt it many times. When people told me sending humans to Mars was impossible, I didn't just hear criticism, I heard a challenge. When they said electric cars could never compete with gas cars, I didn't just hear a prediction, I heard a declaration of war on my imagination and will. And every time, that anger at mediocrity became fuel to work relentlessly, to reject safe paths and choose the roads few dared to take. You need to understand, this anger, when controlled, is a more lasting energy than any other motivation. Motivation can fade with emotions, but anger at mediocrity is rooted deep in you. It won't let you settle for just enough. It forces you to ask, why can't it be better? Why can't it go further? Why can't the old rules be broken? But to turn this anger into power, you must learn to direct it. If you let it become bitterness, you'll burn yourself out. But if you turn it into a commitment, a discipline, a promise to yourself that you will not step back from any limit, it becomes the engine that drives you beyond everything you once imagined. I know you've felt this anger at least once in your life, maybe when you were underestimated, when someone said you weren't capable, or when you saw yourself living a life no different from millions of others and suddenly realized you couldn't accept that. Don't kill this feeling. Hold on to it. Let it remind you that you were born to do more than exist. The world does not change because of people who accept mediocrity. It changes because of those brave enough to get angry at it and do something different. And if you are one of them, you don't need permission. You just need to start. Anger at mediocrity is not a weakness. It's proof you are still truly alive, that a part of your soul still refuses to be tamed. Keep it, nurture it, because it will be what pulls you out of the comfort zone through false limits and into the place where extraordinary things begin. Opportunity doesn't wait. It doesn't care if you're ready or not, nor does it care that you're busy with personal worries. It appears like a door slightly ajar, and if you don't step through immediately, it will close, sometimes forever. I learned this lesson very early, and it became an unshakable life principle. When opportunity appears, you must take it, even if you're not ready. The truth is, you will never be truly ready. Perfect readiness is an illusion people create to delay. They say, when I have more money, when I have more time, when I'm more confident, but that means they're waiting for a day that will never come. And when they finally realize it, the opportunity belongs to someone else. I remember clearly the moment I decided to start SpaceX. At the time, the space industry was dominated by a few massive corporations and government agencies. Everyone said a private company launching rockets was a fantasy. If I had waited for consensus or enough experience to be certain, I would never have started. Instead, I stepped in when everyone doubted, because I understood that the moment opportunity appears, you have to jump before it passes. Opportunities often come in imperfect forms. They don't have glowing signs or guarantees. Sometimes they disguise themselves as risks or failures. When Tesla was still young, many believed the electric car industry was already dead. But I saw a narrow window. Battery technology had advanced enough to change the entire market if someone dared to invest seriously. That window was only open for a short time. If I hadn't acted then, it would have closed and someone else would have taken it. Opportunity is fair in the most ruthless way. It comes to everyone but stays only with those fast enough to grab it. You can complain that you're unlucky, but the truth is, you've missed small daily opportunities simply because you didn't notice or weren't decisive enough to act. Some opportunities, when missed, can be replaced by similar ones, but there are also opportunities that, once gone, will never return. They are the moments that, if taken, will turn your life in a completely different direction. The hard part is you'll never know for sure which kind they are until you look back. That's why you must act first, analyze later. Many believe waiting is the safe choice. In reality, waiting is giving up. The world doesn't stop for you to decide. While you're considering, others have stepped in, failed, learned, and moved far ahead. By the time you're ready, they're too far for you to catch up. I don't deny the value of preparation, but preparation must happen alongside action. You can improve your plan after you've started, but you can't reclaim a lost opportunity. Opportunity is a flow, not a still pond. It keeps moving, and you have to jump when it passes by. Sometimes, opportunity comes disguised as a problem everyone wants to avoid. Successful people don't look for opportunity in safe places. They find it in hard spots no one wants to touch, because they know competition is smaller and potential is greater there. When I thought about bringing internet to the most remote parts of the world, many laughed. But I knew if I didn't act then, one day a telecom giant would fill the gap and the opportunity would be gone. Seizing opportunity isn't just acting fast, it's accepting the risk that you might be wrong. But the cost of being wrong is often far smaller than the cost of doing nothing. A missed opportunity can set you back years, even a lifetime, to find a similar starting point. So, when you see a door slightly open, don't stand outside, speculating. Step in, even if you can't see clearly inside. That action not only gives you a chance at success, it creates momentum that attracts more opportunities. Because opportunities often come in chains, one door leading to another, but only if you step through the first. Opportunity doesn't wait, and it doesn't knock twice. If you miss it, accept that some trains only run once, but when you dare to get on, you'll see that train can take you to places you never even imagined before. And that's why I believe that for anyone who wants to change their life, the first thing they must learn is speed in seizing opportunity. Because in this world, speed isn't everything, but slowness is certainly defeat. You are not normal, and that's a good thing. In a world that worships fitting in, where everyone is taught to mold themselves into a template, your difference is a gift. But this gift often comes disguised as a burden, because society will make you believe that being different means being wrong. They want you to follow preset paths, what school to attend, what job to take, when to marry, how to retire. They tell you it's the safe route, but in reality, it's a box designed to keep you within boundaries they're comfortable with. I, Elon Musk, have never believed in that box. If I had, I would be working in a big corporation, earning a stable salary, and spending the rest of my life compromising with ideas not bold enough to change the world. But I wasn't born to be normal, and I believe you weren't either. Your not normal may not be obvious to everyone, but it's something you've always felt deep inside. It's there when you feel uneasy accepting a reality everyone says is good enough. It pushes you to question why things have to be that way, and whether there's a better option. It stops you from pretending to be satisfied when you know you can do more. Normal people seek comfort. Not normal people seek truth. Normal people want things easy. Not normal people are willing to step into uncertainty to discover something new. Normal people fear judgment. Not normal people accept judgment as long as they can live true to themselves. And you somehow have chosen the second path, even when it's harder, lonelier, and sometimes more painful. You're not normal because you can't ignore the voice inside you just to earn the crowd's approval. You're not normal because you don't measure your worth by outdated standards society imposes. You're not normal because you understand that true happiness doesn't come from being like everyone else, but from being the truest version of yourself, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Your difference will make some people distance themselves. They'll feel threatened when you break the molds they rely on for safety. They'll label you as reckless, delusional, or difficult. But remember, most of the biggest changes in history came from people once called those things. When I first spoke about settling on Mars, many laughed. When I talked about making electric cars mainstream, they called me a dreamer. But difference doesn't need approval, it needs consistency. Your not normal is the ability to see possibilities others overlook and the courage to act without a clear map. It's refusing to follow inertia just because that's how it's always been done. It's accepting risks normal people avoid, not because you like danger, but because you know real rewards only exist where the majority won't go. Being not normal also means learning to exist without consensus. That's not easy because human instinct craves belonging. But if you always adjust yourself to match your surroundings, you'll lose the one thing that makes you truly valuable, your uniqueness. The world doesn't need another perfect copy of anyone. The world needs you, with all your edges, ideas, and even unrelatable traits only you have. What you need to do is turn your not normal into strength. Transform it into the energy that drives you to create, innovate, and lead. Normal people quit after a few rejections. Not normal people keep going until they find a way to break the door. Normal people stop when things get too unpredictable. Not normal people advance because they know the unknown is where new possibilities are born. And if you're reading this, it means you've already felt it within yourself. Don't hide it. Don't sand yourself down to fit the box someone else designed. Let your not normal be the reason you do what others only dream of. Because when you accept you're not normal, you'll no longer be bound by rules others set. You'll start setting new ones, not just for yourself, but for the world you touch. And that's what makes life worth living. Fear is a sign you're heading in the right direction. Most people see fear as a warning signal to stop. They believe that if something makes them anxious, uneasy, or out of control, then it must be a mistake. But the truth is the opposite. Fear often appears when you're approaching a major turning point, when you're about to enter a territory with growth potential far beyond anything you've experienced. If a path feels completely safe, comfortable, and predictable, that's usually a sign you're staying inside your old limits. And those limits are never where change happens. I, Elon Musk, have stood at the threshold of fear many times. When I decided to invest every dollar I had into Tesla and SpaceX at the same time, I was not calm. I faced the possibility of losing everything. Money, reputation, and years of relentless work. Imagine going bankrupt, being criticized, being called a failed dreamer. But I also knew that if the fear was this strong, it meant I was standing before an opportunity big enough to change not just my life, but an entire industry. Fear appears when you step out of your comfort zone and into uncharted territory. It's your brain's natural response to protect you from the unknown. But that unknown is also where the greatest rewards lie. The problem isn't eliminating fear, it's learning to move forward while it's still there. Many people wait until they no longer feel afraid before acting. They think that one day confidence will arrive like magic and they'll be ready. But the truth is, confidence only comes after you've walked through fear and found yourself still standing. If you wait for fear to vanish, you'll wait forever. Fear is a map pointing you to the areas of life where you're still held back by your own limits. Are you afraid of public speaking? That's a sign you need to learn how to speak so others listen. Afraid to invest in your idea? That's a sign you're facing an opportunity only risk takers will seize. Afraid to change jobs? That's a sign your current environment has stopped pushing you to grow. When I first spoke about sending humans to Mars, I didn't just fear technical failure, I feared ridicule, being seen as delusional. But I knew that if your idea doesn't make someone think you're crazy, it's probably too small to be worth chasing. And if you don't feel at least a little fear, you might be choosing a path that's too easy. The difference between people who achieve the extraordinary and those who never rise above average lies in how they face fear. Ordinary people avoid it. Successful people walk straight into it. Not because they're fearless, but because they know that on the other side of fear lies a space most will never reach. When you cross it, you immediately eliminate about 90% of the competition. Fear also sharpens your vision. If thinking about a goal scares you, it's a sign the goal is big enough that you'll have to change yourself to achieve it. And that process of change is the real reward. The outcome is just a natural result. I'm not saying you should take blind risks. Fear must be faced with preparation and strategy, but never with endless delay. Each time you walk through fear, you expand your comfort zone, and what made you tremble yesterday becomes routine tomorrow. Repeat this process enough, and one day you'll realize the things that terrified you in the past now mean nothing. Sadly, most people spend their lives avoiding fear. They follow worn paths, stay in jobs they've long mastered, keep relationships that no longer challenge their growth, all to avoid feeling uneasy. But the price of safety is a life never fully lived. I want you to understand this. Every time you feel fear, it's an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and closer to your best self. Fear is not the enemy, it's a signal, an invitation to step into the place where life truly happens. If you learn to listen and act on it, you'll realize how many possibilities you've missed just to feel safe. And from the moment you change this perspective, fear will stop being a barrier. It will become a compass guiding you to places others dare not go. And it's there you'll find things they will never have. Don't procrastinate. If there's one killer of dreams more than any other, it's not failure, it's delay. Procrastination is like a mental anesthetic. It makes you feel comfortable for a moment, but little by little, it steals your vitality, willpower, and opportunities. People often say there will be a better time, but the truth is, the perfect moment doesn't exist. And while you wait for the right time, the world keeps moving, and what you miss will never return. Right. I have seen too many smart, talented people with brilliant ideas who never turn them into reality simply because they keep waiting. They wait until they have more money, more experience, less busyness. But what they don't realize is that starting is what creates experience, opportunity, and sometimes even resources. If I had waited until I was absolutely ready to start SpaceX or Tesla, neither might exist today. When I began, I didn't have all the answers or any guarantee of success. I only knew that if I didn't act now, I'd regret it for life. Procrastination isn't always laziness. Often it's disguised as more preparation or more research. It sounds reasonable, but in reality, it's fear of failure dressed as logic. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, but really, you're avoiding risk. And while you chase absolute certainty, the opportunity passes. Every great achievement begins with one simple decision: to act, even when you're not ready. Don't confuse preparation with procrastination. Preparation is to act. Procrastination is to avoid acting. An imperfect plan executed is always better than a perfect plan left on the shelf. Many don't realize they don't lack time, they're just spending it on things that take them nowhere. They think they have years to act, but in reality, each day you delay is a day lost to getting closer to your goal. And some opportunities once missed never return. When I decided to sell PayPal and put all my capital into completely new fields like electric cars and rockets, I didn't wait until the market was safe or the technology mature. I knew that if I didn't step in then, a few years later the door would close or someone else would take it. I chose to act, even with massive risk, because I understood the risk of doing nothing was far greater. Procrastination is a habit, and like all habits, it gets stronger each time you repeat it. Every time you say tomorrow, you dig the gap between you and your goal deeper. On the other hand, immediate action, even a small step, builds momentum that pulls you out of the inertia of delay. And once you have momentum, everything becomes easier. Don't wait for inspiration to start, because inspiration is the product of action, not the requirement for it. When you begin, inspiration will come. But if you just sit and wait, you'll sink deeper into stagnation. The world changes too fast for you to feel safe thinking there's still time. The ideas you hold today, if not acted on, will become outdated or be executed by someone else. And then you'll realize you didn't fail because your idea was bad, but because you didn't start soon enough. Don't fool yourself into thinking you'll have more motivation tomorrow. Tomorrow is no different from today, unless you change your actions now. Every minute you delay, you let fear, doubt, and false comfort win. And the longer you wait, the thicker those invisible walls become. What I want you to remember is this: you'll never regret starting, but you will regret not starting sooner. Time is the one resource you can't recreate. Money can be earned back, energy can be restored, but lost time never returns. And if you let yourself fall into the loop of delay, you'll lose the most precious thing you have. Don't wait until you're ready. Don't wait until everything is perfect. If you keep waiting, you'll stay at the starting line while those who dare to act, even clumsily, are already halfway there. Start today, start now, with what you have. Every great success begins with that small but decisive choice, the choice to procrastinate no more. Action creates belief. Most people think they need belief first before they can begin. They want to feel certain, eliminate all doubts, and be fueled with motivation before taking a step. But that's a major misunderstanding. Belief doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's not a gift you receive by sitting still and waiting. It's the product of action. And only when you start, even in a state of uncertainty and low confidence, will you gradually build a solid belief in yourself. I, Elon Musk, didn't start Tesla with absolute certainty that I would succeed. On the contrary, I knew there was a very high chance I would fail. But I still started because I understood that belief would be built in the process. Through each test, each real-world challenge, each failure and adjustment, every time I took another step, no matter how small, I could see more than I did before. And as my vision became clearer, my belief grew stronger. Many people get stuck in a loop. They don't act because they lack belief, but they never gain belief because they don't act. They stand at the starting line, looking at the long road ahead, wondering if they're capable. But capability doesn't come from standing still, analyzing. It comes from putting one foot forward and letting experience itself become living proof that you can. Belief is built from small victories. You can't force yourself to believe in something just by words or imagination. You must give yourself evidence. Every task you complete, every difficulty you overcome, every barrier you break, all are bricks that build the wall of belief. And when that wall is strong enough, you'll look at bigger challenges without the same fear. I've seen many people spend months, even years, only researching and planning, yet never executing. They think that the more prepared they are, the more confident they'll feel. But that confidence is only an illusion if you've never acted. Once you start, everything changes. You'll face problems no plan could predict, and solving them is what creates true belief. Belief comes from experience, and experience only comes from action. No one has ever achieved something great just through empty belief. They achieved it because they started, then let belief form along the way. Think of a mountain climber. They don't stand at the base, looking up at the peak, waiting for absolute certainty before climbing. They start step by step. With every step upward, they see the scenery change, see themselves getting closer, and that reinforces their belief they'll reach the top. If they only stayed at the base, belief would remain theory. One reason I act quickly is that overanalyzing weakens determination. Overthinking makes things seem more complicated, risks seem bigger, and eventually you'll find enough reasons to do nothing. But once you act, your focus shifts to solutions instead of risks, to the next step instead of the whole journey, and each step forward adds a new layer of belief. Here's the interesting truth. Sometimes your actions won't create the results you wanted, but they still strengthen belief. Failure doesn't kill belief if you learn from it and see yourself grow stronger. In fact, failure in action often helps you believe you can endure, adapt, and return with a better strategy. That's a deeper belief than any encouragement could give. Remember, belief doesn't come from knowing you'll win. It comes from knowing you can keep going even when you haven't won yet. That's why I always say the first step is the most important. Not because it decides the result immediately, but because it breaks the inertia, opens the door for the next moves, and step by step builds the belief you thought you didn't have. Don't wait until you feel ready. Readiness is a result, not a prerequisite. If you dare to act today, even without full confidence, tomorrow you'll have more belief to do something bigger, and so on. Each action builds an unshakable foundation. Belief is not magic, nor a burst of inspiration. It's the byproduct of doing, of daring to step into the unknown and proving to yourself you can. Once you understand this, you'll never let lack of confidence stop you from starting again, because you'll know belief is waiting on the other side of action, and the only way to reach it is to move forward right now. Turning points never arrive in silence. They often appear when it feels like everything is against you, when the numbers don't look good, when public opinion isn't on your side, when all the data seems to say you should stop. That's the point where most people give up, but it's also the point where, if you stay alert and determined, you can turn the whole game around. I, Elon Musk, have faced such moments many times. In 2008, Tesla was nearly out of cash, and SpaceX had just failed its third consecutive launch. I stood before a choice: shut down one of them, or even both, to preserve the little capital left. It wasn't just about money, it was an entire ecosystem of belief, effort, and hope from hundreds of people. At that moment, every rational thought told me retreat was the wise choice, but I knew that if I quit, everything we had built would collapse forever. A turning point is when you realize you can't keep going on momentum alone, but you also can't accept the end. It demands a bold decision, a new direction, and the courage to bet everything on it. I chose to put all the remaining money into both Tesla and SpaceX, knowing that if one failed, both could sink together. People called it reckless. I called it necessary. A turning point isn't always a full 180-degree change. Sometimes it's a small adjustment that triggers a chain reaction, like shifting your market approach, refining your product to address the core need, or reordering resource priorities. But big or small, the common trait is that you must decide under extreme pressure and with imperfect information. Many fail not because they're not good enough, but because they don't dare to turn when the moment comes. They cling to old plans just because they've invested too much in them, or fear being seen as changing their mind. But blind persistence isn't strength. It's the fastest road to ruin. The difference between leaders and followers lies in the ability to recognize the moment to turn and the courage to act while others hesitate. Turning requires you to face the bare reality, set aside ego, and accept that the current path isn't the only way to the goal. You must believe in your long-term vision strongly enough not to be obsessed with the steps you've already taken, but to focus on the most effective next step. I remember clearly the decision to shift Tesla's production strategy, focusing on the Model S before considering cheaper lines. At the time, many thought this would limit the market, but I knew I needed to prove quality and technology potential before scaling. That decision saved Tesla from being dismissed as a failed experiment. A turning point is like steering a ship in a storm. You can't stop the storm, but you can change course to avoid sinking. It doesn't guarantee you'll reach your destination easily, but it gives you a chance to survive and even break through. The problem is, this moment often disguises itself as a crisis, making most people avoid it instead of seizing it. When it comes, you'll feel pressure so heavy, it's hard to breathe. Everything will seem vague and uncertain. But if your vision is clear, that uncertainty won't paralyze you. It will push you to be more creative, faster, and more decisive. Turning isn't betraying your original goal, it's protecting it with a new route. In every great journey, there will come a time when the map you hold is no longer accurate. At that moment, turning isn't just the best choice, it's the only choice. The most successful people aren't those who never change direction, but those who know when to and act before it's too late. And when you look back, you'll see it's those turning points that truly define your story, not the calm days, not the easy wins, but the times you dared to pivot when everything was on the verge of collapse. I've lived long enough to know you can't avoid turning points. They will come whether you want them or not. The only thing you can do is prepare your mindset so that when they arrive, you don't panic, but look straight at them and say, good, this is the time to change. And if you're brave enough to do that, the turning point will no longer be the end. It will become the launch pad for a new chapter, stronger, bolder, and more unforgettable than anything you've done before. You are the choice. Not a coincidence, not a random ticket falling from the sky, but the result of millions of variables converging to bring you to this exact moment. You may not realize it, but every experience you've been through, whether good or bad, voluntary or forced, has been leading you here, to the place where you have the right to decide your next direction. And that very right to decide is what makes you different. Elon Musk have never believed in sitting around waiting for someone to come and choose me. Throughout my career, I've understood that if you want to create something valuable, you can't wait to be given a chance. You have to make yourself the obvious choice. Not through luck, but by showing up consistently, acting consistently, proving again and again that you are ready to take responsibility for what you pursue. When I started SpaceX, many people said I was a dreamer, that the rocket industry wasn't for outsiders. But I didn't seek their approval. I didn't wait for anyone to nod. I made myself the choice. By diving into the work, learning every technical detail, building each team and enduring every failure with patience, and when the opportunity appeared, I didn't need to argue to prove myself. My work spoke for itself. You live in a world where everyone has the right to choose, yet most people let others choose for them. They let circumstances, the market, or other people's opinions shape their path. They forget that every day, through action or silence, they are choosing how they exist. You can choose to stand still and let life pass by, or you can choose to be the one who creates change. Choice isn't always easy. Often the right path is the harder one, demanding that you face uncertainty, risk, and pressure. But look back at all the great achievements in history. They never came from safe choices. They came from people who dared to bet on what they believed in, even when the whole world called them crazy. And if you think you're not ready, remember, none of us are ever completely ready for a big leap. What makes the difference is that you jump anyway, and that leap is what makes you the choice. I want you to understand this. You don't need anyone's permission to start. You don't need to wait for a sign from the universe. The moment you decide to act, you've already given yourself the right to do it. And each step you take, no matter how small, strengthens your position so that when the opportunity comes, no one can deny you're the most fitting person for it. Ask yourself, if you don't choose yourself today, who will? If you don't step forward, who are you giving the power to decide your life to? And if you let someone else choose for you, are you truly ready to accept that outcome? In my journey, I've realized that what people regret most is not the times they failed, but the times they didn't choose themselves. They missed opportunities that could have changed their lives simply because they thought they weren't good enough, experienced enough, or lucky enough. But the truth is, no one starts out with everything. Only when you begin do you become capable enough. So if I had to give one piece of advice, it would be this. Choose yourself, even if you're the only one who believes in you right now. Don't wait for someone to hand you the position, create that position. Don't let your life be the result of other people's choices. Your future should be the product of the decision you make today. And remember, when you choose yourself, you don't just change your own path, you open the door for others to dare to choose themselves. You become living proof that it's possible. So this is the moment. Not tomorrow, not when everything is perfect, but right now. Choose yourself, choose to take the step, choose to become someone who cannot be overlooked, because you are the choice, and it's time you live as if you are the answer the world has been looking for.